Hare Krishna. In continuation of our Japa retreat theme over the last week, this past weekend, this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class is going to be, the topic is going to be experiencing the form of the name by His Holiness Romapada Swami. This class is being broadcasted on Houston ISKCON channel. So if you're already on the Houston ISKCON channel, at the end of the class or during the class, you can post your discussion points or questions in the YouTube chat box, and then we will have somebody read those questions from here. So please do remember to post those questions on the chat box. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Daya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sanyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This is going to have some sound that's going to hopefully come from my computer. I better do a little sound check to make sure it's going to come from my computer. Oh, Govind. Okay. Very soft. But it just went away. Just went away. But now it's not showing on the screen. What? Okay. What are you doing?
I'm going to try to use audio.
Okay. But I didn't bring my little portable amplifier.
Yeah, now they can see it.
Okay. During our weekend Japa retreat, there were several references. One of the primary references was the topic that Radhakrishna Prabhu spoke about, that the name and the person are non-different, the absolute nature of Krishna's name and Krishna's form. This is speaking about the form of the name. The form of the name. The name has form. The person has form, and the name has form, and the name and the person are identical. I'll say it again. The person Krishna has form. The name Krishna has form. And there's a nice song that was referenced several times from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Gitavali under the Namashtaka. There's 8 songs, and song number 6 is where the starting point of this discussion is. And you remember, I'll remind you in case you don't remember, Vacha and Vachaka. Vacha and Vachaka. Vacha, that's Krishna's form that you see here. And Vachaka is the sound, Krishna. So we're going to hear that the sound, Krishna, has form. And you can sing along. Hopefully technology will work. And the singer is recorded is Badahari Prabhu. You'll recognize he was unable to come because of his health. But he'll be with us through sound, singing this song. Now, the sound is not great. The volume is not great, but sing along. And this first stanza, Vacha and Vachaka stanza, is sung twice. So he will sing, and then if you like, still muted, you can sing along. And you'll hear the chorus singing in response. And then he'll sing it again. And then the chorus will respond. And then we'll go to the next. For this is song 6 of Namastaka from Gitavali. And Krishna permitting, technology will work. Let's see.
Vacha o vachaka dui sarupa tuma vacha tavashi vigra chiranandaka.
Pause.
Vacha o vachaka dui sarupa tuma Achatavasi vigraha
And he'll repeat this.
Vacha o vachakadui sarupama Achatavasi vigraha chiranandaka. Vachaka Sarubhadava Shri Krishna Adinam Vanarupa Sarva Jiva Ananda Vishram. Vachaka Sarubhadava Shri Krishna Adinam Vanarupi Sarva Jiva Ananda Vishram. দুই স্বরূপে ধবানন্দ প্রকাশ দয়া করি দেয়া জীবে তোমার বিলাস দুই স্বরূপে ধবানন্দ প্রকাশ দয়া করে দেয়া জীবে তোমার বিলাস
দয়া করে জীবে তোমার বিলাস
কিন্তু জানে আছে না পাচক স্বরূপ পাচপেক্ষ দয়াময় অপরূপ
কিন্তু জানি আছি না তা বাচা কাসারো বাচা পেক্ষা দয়াময় আপরূপ
কিন্তু জানে আছে না পাচক স্বরূপ পাচপেক্ষ দয়াময় অপরূপ
কিন্তু জানি আছি না তা বাচা কাসারো বাচা পেক্ষা দয়াময় আপরূপ
নাম নামে বেরনায় বেরেরা বচন তবু নাম নামে হইতে আদিক করুন
নাম নামি বেদনায় বেদরাবসা তব নাম নামি হইতে
নাম নামে বেরনায় বেরেরা বচন তবু নাম নামে হইতে আদিক করুন
নাম নামি বেদনায় বেদরাবসা তব নামি নামি হইতে আদিক করুন
কৃষ্ণ অপরাধী জগে নমস্বরী ঘোরি প্রণবরি দেখতা
কৃষ্ণে অপরাধী যদি নামে শ্রদ্ধা করি তানা বড়ি ধাকে নাম রাম কৃষ্ণ হরে
কৃষ্ণ অপরাধী জগে নমস্বর ঘোরি প্রণবরি দেখে নাম রাম কৃষ্ণ হরে
কৃষ্ণে অপরাধী যদি নামে শ্রদ্ধা করি তানা বড়ি ধাকে নাম রাম কৃষ্ণ হরে
Rama Krishna Hare Rama Krishna Hare Rama Krishna Hare Rama Krishna Hare
Rama Krishna
Rama Krishna Hare Rama Krishna Hare
Rama Krishna Hare Rama Krishna
Aparada jure jai ananda sagare basise anayasi rasara pathare
Aparade jore jai ananda sakare Kase se anasya se kase rapatare
Aparada jure jai ananda sagare basise anayasi rasara pathare
Aparade jore jai ananda sakare Kase se anasya se kase
Vigraha sarvamache aparad kori Shudha namashaya se aparad kori
Vigraha sarovache aparada kori Shudha namashaya aparade kori
Vigraha sarvamache aparad kori Shudha namashaya se aparad kori
Vigraha sarovache aparada kori Sudha namaskaye se aparade thore.
Bhakti Vinod Mani Shrirupa Charane Vachaka Surupana Mirade Anukshane. Bhakti Vinod Mani Shrirupa Charane Vachaka Surupana Mirade Anukshane. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare.
Okay. I'd like to have you hear a recording of the translation of there's a little music along with the translator. It's recorded, and the voice is Prematarangini's voice, giving the English translation of what we just heard, and then we'll go through it slowly one more time. So here's the
O Lord, you possess two transcendental forms, properly called Vachya, that which is nameable, and Vachaka, that which denotes. The Vachya is your beautiful personal bodily form, full of transcendental knowledge and bliss. The Vachaka forms are your holy names, such as Sri Krishna and so forth. Thus, appearing in the form of transcendental sound vibration, you are the resting place for the bliss of all souls. Your unlimited manifestations are found in these two forms. Taking pity and being very kind, they confer upon the fallen souls entrance into your divine pastimes. But of these two forms of yours, O Lord, I have understood your Vachaka form to be even more merciful than your Vachya form. Thus do I find your holy name most wonderful. It is the declaration of the Vedas that the holy name of the Lord and the Lord Himself are non-different. Yet, still, the holy name is more merciful than the Lord Himself. If one is an offender to Lord Krishna personally, genuine faith in the holy name and calls out with all his heart and soul, Rama, Krishna, Hari, Rama, Krishna, Hari, Rama, Krishna, Hari. Then all his offenses are cast far away, and he floats without difficulty in the ocean of divine bliss and transcendental mellows. A person may commit offenses to the Vachya or the transcendental figure of the Lord. But if he is under the shelter of the pure holy name, he crosses over all those offenses. At the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, Bhaktivinoda begs for constant loving attachment for the Vachaka or divine holy name of the Supreme Lord.
Naturally, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is expanding on teachings from previous acharyas. That's the way of any guru's way of teaching. Certainly Bhaktivinoda Thakur followed that standard. And it's really fascinating to see the sources from which he drew to make it very clear that everything that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote and explained has an authoritative source for it. And so that is, he was transparently simply presenting. And another, he was vastly learned and well-read. in addition to writing 100 books, how prolific was he in his writing? And everything that he wrote came from some authentic source, very meticulously selected. So here is, in the upper left corner, there's a painting of Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami also wrote Namastaka, and there was 8 verses. This is verse number 6, just as Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote Namastaka in Gitavali. So you see in the first line, I'm not going to go through all the Sanskrit, but Vacham and Vachakam are found there. And here's the translation. O holy name, you manifest in 2 forms. The Supreme Person described by the holy name, Vacham, and the sound vibration of the holy name, Vachakam. Rupa Goswami writes, we know that the second form is more merciful than the first. Even a person who commits many offenses to the first form may become always plunged into an ocean of bliss by serving the second with his voice. Now, the Namastaka 6 of Bhaktivinoda Thakur is simply expanding Namastaka 6 of Rupa Goswami. Should be really clear. Yes? So now, a reminder of something that we covered already twice. Now here's, during our Japa retreat, here's number 3 time that we're covering this topic. I'll say it simply and then I'll read. Stated simply, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes that in our present condition it's not possible to comprehend, you can say realize, comprehend that the name and the person are non-different. That's not that the name has form, but the name and the person are non-different. And he gives a remedy, because that's our present condition is limited. And the remedy is hearing, he uses this term, with the spiritual ear. Hearing with the spiritual ear is distinct from hearing with the material ear, just like you could show a decibel meter and say how many decibels is the sound vibration and what's the frequencies and so forth and so on. There's material ways of measuring sound. But the spiritual ear is the soul itself, has spiritual mind, spiritual senses, spiritual intelligence. And all of this includes the spiritual ear. And when the spiritual ear hears the sound, of course the spiritual ear is hearing the sound. But when the spiritual ear hears the sound and we recognize that sound with the spiritual ear, then we can realize the name and the person are non-different, and we can realize the form of the name. Fascinating, huh? Mechanical chanting is not sufficient. Mechanical chanting is where we all start. But mechanical chanting is not sufficient, and we need to strive carefully by carefully hearing and striving further to carefully hear and further to carefully hear. That's our life's mission, our morning japa mission and our kirtan mission, is striving and striving and striving further to hear with full attention the sound of Krishna's name. As that becomes accomplished, then the spiritual form of the name and the non-difference between the name and the person can be understood. And let me read. It's his language. Of course, it's translated from Bengali. The name of the Lord and the Lord himself are not two separate entities, but one. Then there's the material sound. When the sound of the holy name passes over the lips, the conditioned sense of hearing and the conditioned consciousness initially process the sound as if it were material, and that is how it is perceived. As a result, only the external ear hears it. Paragraph. Since the other senses and mind, which is the collector of sensory experience, are envious of the ear, which they consider to be an equal partner, the result is that such chanting does not affect the cleansing of anarthas. That's problematic, because there's impurities within the heart. Aside from sins and reactions to sins, there's impurities within the heart that are resting there, and the chanting will not fully remove those offenses or the results of offenses, the anarthas in the heart, without this proper hearing. Paragraph. We do not have the capacity even to theoretically know that the name and the Lord of the name are one. Yet, just as piercing of the ear is one of the Vedic rites for a young child, when our spiritual ear has been pierced by the holy name, the other senses give up their envy of the auditory sense. They no longer quibble with the ear, which alone can perceive transcendental sound. Then the flood of prema pours forth from all the spiritual senses and cleanses away the contaminations of opposition and malice. He goes on a little bit. Very, very similar. The language, of course, is different than Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, but that's how Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song ends. And we're going to go through it one more time slowly. So these two terms, vacha and vachaka, vacha and vachaka. Vacha is what you see on the screen. That's Krishna's form. The very beautiful painting. It's Krishna seeing his reflection in the marble floor in Dwarka. And when he saw his own reflection, he was stunned at the beauty that he saw. Stunned. I've seen this image so many times. In the reflection, you can see a lotus flower in his right hand on the floor. You don't see a lotus flower in his hand except in the reflection. That's a detail. Beautiful form, and that's the vacha, that which is nameable. And vachaka, that's the name, or that which denotes the nameable. The vacha is your beautiful personal bodily form of transcendental knowledge and bliss. So, and they're equal, and both have form. Now, it's very obvious. There's Krishna's form. Very obvious. Very beautiful, all-attractive form. However, the starting point of this is that the name, that which denotes the person, also has form. Lord, you possess two transcendental forms. The vachaka forms are your holy names, such as Sri Krishna and so forth, thus appearing in the form of transcendental sound. You are the resting place for the bliss of all souls. Now I'm going to pause for a moment. And there's so many things to be said about sound has form. But one of my favorite ones, this a scientific instrument was created, designed, and built in the early 1900s, where one European, I believe he was Swiss man, wanted to see what's the effect of sound on matter. And so he developed a machine which he called a tonoscope. You can look it up. T-O-N-O scope. And the tonoscope had three parts. Something that created sound. Second part was a tube or a channel through which the sound was projected. And the third part was some kind of a membrane or surface upon which the sound hit. Sometimes a crystal, sometimes a membrane, but it was, where in one case, because I saw a video of this, there was just powder. And as the sound was directed towards the crystal or the membrane, the powder would bounce around. And if it was just a mundane sound, it was just, the normal chaos of particles of dust or sand, very fine sand, on that crystal or the membrane. But then when they projected Om, you could watch the video. The dust particles or the sand particles start to move around and move around and move around and move around, and it forms the symbol Om. And then that sound vibration is taken away, and it's another sound, and it goes back to chaos. And you do it again, and there's the Om sound, and it takes a while, but gradually the particles of sand form the Om symbol. Or, I didn't see this, but the report says other Sanskrit sounds form the Sanskrit letters. Fascinating, huh? So, sound has form, and that sound affects matter, which also takes a certain form. If one is immersed, like you see in this nice photograph of Indra chanting, and there's a sound of Krishna's name, and there on the other side is Krishna's form, but the sound of Krishna's name and the form of Krishna's name and the form of Krishna's vacha are non-different. Your unlimited manifestations are found in these two forms. Taking pity and being very kind, they confer upon the fallen souls entrance into your divine pastimes. That's the next step. But be from Nama, Rupa, Guna Lila. Those of you that have read Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writing, the Harinam Chintamani, the spiritual world is revealed in those stages. We don't need to imagine Krishna's form, we just hear the sound. And from the sound, the form of the sound. It's not, let's say it this way. It's not like you're chanting and over there somewhere there's a form that suddenly appears or gradually appears. Rather, within the name is form. And within the name and form there's qualities and pastimes. That's what this verse is saying. They confer upon the fallen souls entrance into your divine pastimes. Now both forms. Now if Krishna revealed his form, and you happen to be present when Krishna revealed his form, you're being invited into his divine pastimes. At least for the moment of the exchange with Krishna's form and your own consciousness. At the same time, the name accomplishes the same. That is, the fallen souls are conferred entrance into Krishna's pastimes. But of these two forms of yours, O Lord, I have understood, Bhaktivinoda, have understood your Vachaka form to be even more merciful than your Vacha form. Of course, it was Rupa Goswami's understanding. Thus do I find your holy name most wonderful. Why? Even more merciful? Here's why. It is the declaration of the Vedas that the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself are non-different. And that's where you find the terminology we're more used to, Nama and Nami. Nama and Nami, the holy name and the Lord himself are non-different. Yet still the holy name is more merciful than the Lord himself. Why? If one is an offender to the Lord personally, but has genuine faith in the holy name and calls out with all his heart and soul, just as Badhari did and Prematarangani did 3 times, Rama, Krishna, Hari, with all his heart and soul, Rama, Krishna, Hari, Rama, Krishna, Hari, one who genuinely has faith and calls out with all his heart those names of the Lord, then all his offenses are cast far away, and he floats without difficulty in the ocean of divine bliss and transcendental mellows. So the same as what Rupa Goswami said, and what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said. There is a complete symmetry with our previous Acharya's teachings. And all we have to do is have faith in their words, which means have faith in the name, and chant without offense. And if you hear and chant with faith in the name, then all his offenses are cast far away. A person may commit offenses to the Vacha, or the transcendental figure of the Lord, that's deity worship, shown on the left side. But if he is under the shelter of the pure holy name, he crosses over all those offenses. The last line. At the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, Bhaktivinoda begs for the constant loving attachment for the Vachaka, or divine holy name of the Supreme Lord. And he meant it. And he chanted that way. And he experienced what he's describing. Now, we're not experiencing what he's describing because we fall short. But the privilege to access that stage has been made available by these great personalities who prolifically explained and made the chanting available. Here's a nice image of a flower opening in the light of the sun. This is a teaching of Bhaktivinoda. Hladini and Sambit descend on Bhakti Devi to reveal to the jiva the full rasa of the name and the jiva's spiritual form. Interesting, huh? These two potencies of Krishna, Hladini and Sambit potency, descend on Bhakti Devi to reveal to the jiva the full rasa of the name and the jiva's spiritual form. So this is our topic, experiencing the form of the name. The Supreme Absolute Truth, Lord Krishna, possesses an eternal form of sacred syllables. Now, we don't find that in the material world. Here's another image I like. It shows the reflection of a lotus and the lotus. And the reflection of the lotus is not the lotus. It looks like a lotus, but it's not the lotus. And because the ripples of water, the image is distorted or disturbed. So that's what we see in the material world as a distorted reflection of the spiritual reality, what to speak of the name. So it's still namabhas. Namabhas is very, very powerful. Very powerful. But namabhas is meant to be passed through to get to Shuddha Nam. Now, another teaching of Rupa Goswami that will help us reach that Shuddha Nam stage is found in Nectar of Instruction. Nice verse. Syat Krishna Nama Charatadi Sitapya Vidya Pito Patapta Rasanasya Narochikano Kintva Darad Anudinam Kalu Saiva Jushta Sadvi Kramad Bhavati Tad Gulamo Lahantri. This Tad Gada Mulahantri is important. The effect of chanting, beginning with chanting, etc., the disease of material existence is gradually destroyed at the root. Mula means root. Tad gada mula hantri. The root, destroyed at the root, is our material disease. And what's that material disease? It's the material disease of avidya. There we see it, the last word of the first line, avidya. The disease of avidya. This avidya, or ignorance, covers the soul, and so we don't experience, we're on an unhealthy condition, and we don't experience reality, we experience something else. The root of the disease, that avidya, according to the purport and commentaries, is offense. Nam aparad is a very serious problem, and the root of nam aparad is inattentiveness. So this is a reminder of what we discussed during the japa retreat. Be attentive, the three laws of japa. Be attentive, somehow or other, whatever, however, be attentive. And inattentiveness is the root cause of all offenses. And once offenses have rooted in the heart, it's difficult to overcome. We all have experience. Difficult to overcome. And Scripture teaches, but our experience confirms. The mind will be conquered by nama, or Krishna in the form of the holy name Nami, not by our effort alone. This is part of the teaching. This is right from his song, Bhaktivinoda's song. If one is an offender to Lord Krishna personally, but has genuine faith in the holy name and calls out with all his heart and soul, Rama, Krishna, Hari, then all his offenses are cast far away, and he floats without difficulty in the ocean of divine bliss and transcendental mellows. So it's a prerequisite. We're going to go one more step, but just to state again what's being described. Genuine faith in the holy name and call out from your heart. If you remember from yesterday, chant from the heart. Calls out with all his heart and soul with faith in the holy name. Then these offenses are removed. Here's from Harinam Chintamani. As you know, it's a discussion between Haridas and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where Haridas, in this concluding chapter, simply by one's own effort, no one in this material world can overcome inattention. You probably experienced it. Such a victory can only come by your merciful blessings. So while we're making effort, we must make effort. We must make consistent effort sustained over time. We read that nice description of practice. And one of the 3 qualifications of practice is extends over time, consistently over time. But we have to then call for mercy. Lord Chaitanya's mercy, or the mercy of those exalted souls who represent him, like Haridas Thakur or Rupa Goswami or Prabhupada or our great exalted acharyas. This is our Vaishnav way, particularly a Gaudiya Vaishnav way. Here's one more verse from Rupa Goswami. We've already credited him now for the 3rd time. This is from Vidagdha Madhava, the verse that's just describing the chanting of the name. I do not know how much nectar the 2 syllables Krishna have produced. Now we're going in a line from the tongue to the ear to the heart. When the holy name of Krishna is chanted, it appears to dance within the mouth. We then desire many, many mouths. That's the body, the mouth part. Then the ear part, of course, this is now we're going to qualify it as Bhaktisiddhanta did, the spiritual ear. When that name enters the holes of the ears, we desire many millions of ears. And when you hear like that, then the mind becomes conquered. And when the holy name dances in the courtyard of the heart, it conquers the activities of the mind, and therefore all the senses become inert. Beautiful. Very poetic, and very consistent with everything that we hear about the theology of the holy name. So what are the obstacles in experiencing the form of the name? Well, the first one is our mind is all over the place. And then another is our regard, or the attitude of surrender may be weak or intermittent. So what's the solution? Regular hearing. And what's the quality of that hearing? This next slide is the final slide for this morning. Different ways of saying, but this is, be attentive, or stop thinking, start hearing. Or don't space out. That's our ISKCON vernacular. Don't space out here. You can instruct your mind or your ear. Mind, please settle down. Let's go to the ear department. Or just surrender to the sound vibration of the holy name. That's an instruction the intelligence can give to the mind or to the ear. It's the mood of surrender to the sound vibration of the holy name. Please just hear, hear, hear. And I like this image. That's the image is the ear that's hearing Krishna's name. So that's our topic. Experiencing the form of the name. Some of this is review, much of it is review, but it's reinforcing the principles that enable us to go beyond mechanical chanting. Let's just assume there's nama vrata, some numerical vow of chanting daily, and maintaining that for some time is good. It's essential. And then go further, because the natural hankering, as we were discussing yesterday, and we'll talk more next japa retreat, the yearning for that absorption, the hankering for that experience of the name and Krishna are not different, and the name is not different than form. The name has form. So to get those experiences or realizations, our relationship with Krishna, these are important understandings that will help us. So let's see if there's some questions or comments sent into the chat box. And we'll start with whatever's there.
Hare Krishna, yeah. We have a couple questions from Kirti Prabhu. His first is, Lord Krishna kindly manifests in a tangible deity form to accept service. How do we serve the form of the holy name, which is beyond my senses?
How do we do what?
Serve the form
of
the holy name,
by hearing.
which is beyond my senses.
By hearing with the spiritual ear. By hearing, practicing hearing as attentively as possible. And then more attentively than that, and more attentively than that. By striving to hear, that's how you can serve the form of the name. Next.
Same from Kirti Prabhu. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary form of Lord Krishna. Example, 1 and 2 cantos are his lotus feet, etc. Similarly, do the different parts of the holy name denote the different parts of Lord Krishna?
Probably those who are very, very elevated will be able to describe to you the parts of the holy name that represent his toes, and the parts of the holy name that represent his legs, and I don't have that capacity. I've never heard that question asked, never heard anything explaining that topic, but perhaps somewhere one of our great acharyas has revealed those details.
And his third question is the following understanding right? Lord Krishna is absolute, and hence he is non-different from the holy name. So the form of the holy name is Lord Krishna.
Yeah, that's right. Correct. We have something in the room, back, one of our garland makers.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I just wanted to know, like, in material way, we always talk about Krishna's potency.
In the material, the sound of the curtain drawing is louder than you. Hold on. Okay, start again, please.
In the material way, we think about Krishna's potency as Krishna being the sun and the sunlight being his potency.
That's a metaphor, yes.
But as in his Nam, Rupa, Leela, Guna, we don't consider that as separate, like as a sunlight versus the sun. Is that right?
Yes and no. I mean, a metaphor is good insofar as there are common features of what is being referred to in the thing that it's the example itself. The sun the distinction is the sun light doesn't have form, or at least our experience of sunlight doesn't have form. So it's the metaphor is limited. The merit of the metaphor is the rays are resting upon the source of those rays. The existence of the rays is from the source of those rays. There's no separate existence between the rays and the sun which give off rays. However, the Shaktis of Krishna, they're also personified just as he is. They have form. I mean, a nice example of this is in the Brahma Vimohan Leela, when Krishna showed to Brahma the forms of Narayan and all of Narayan's potencies. There's a long list, and he saw them. They didn't see like flashes of light. There's forms. So who knows what that experience was like? But the metaphor has its limits. The merit of the metaphor is the relationship between that which has no separate existence and that which comes from the source. That the expanded entity has no separate existence. So the potencies within Krishna's name, Nam Namakari Bahuda, Nija Sarva Shaktis, that the beginning may be just experiencing, wow, this is very powerful. But more mature stages and more mature stages and more mature stages, it becomes more than just, wow, this is really powerful. Like the rays of the sun are very powerful. There's details and details, but that's for qualified people. Okay.
We have a couple more questions which have come in. First is from Manmatananda Prabhu.
From whom?
Manmatananda Prabhu.
Okay.
He asks, is it fair to say a real demonstration of the name being a form appeared in the pastime of Lord Ram appearing to Mother Shabari?
Could you turn this speaker on? Oh, that's much better. So, Mother Shabari in Ramayana, she had faith in Lord Ram, but whether or not she experienced his form and Lakshmana's form and their smile and their activities before he showed up at the ashram of Sage Matanga, I'm unaware that she had that meditation or had that experience. She had faith. She had faith in the words of her spiritual master. And so she was preparing the ashram every day, just like deity worship, preparing the ashram every day for his arrival, gathering whatever she was gathering and making the place clean with a broom and everything. So that's what she did. It sounds like the question is asking, was she able to meditate on the form and smile and attire and so forth, the details of Lord Ramachandra? There's no indication that that was the kind of sadhana that she did.
We have two questions from Amara Devidasi.
Okay.
What does it mean to hear with a spiritual ear? Can you kindly elaborate?
In simple terms, from the soul, because the soul has spiritual mind, spiritual senses, spiritual intelligence, and that excavating the soul from the coverings of the soul is the necessary procedure or steps, but what it means is the soul is hearing. And it requires purification to get to that stage.
Second question. The nature of the material world is like the mind is all over the place. It is ongoing. Few mantras will be attentive in between when I can feel the mercy, but most of it is spaced out. Can you kindly speak a little more on how not to space out and chant with deep regard?
Just strive to be attentive. You say you move from the distracted to the attracted, the attentive. And it takes a lot of practice, takes a lot of endeavor, and it takes a lot of mercy. But that's the steps to not space out.
One question from Brihat Mridanga Prabhu. A form is known by its limits.
Yeah.
My phone is not my notebook, for example,
Right.
because my phone has a spatial limit.
Yes.
So since Krishna is limitless, how does he have a form?
This question I'll refer is very beautifully described in Bhagavad Sandarbha in connection to a verse. You can look up the detail. It's the prayers of Gajendra 8.3.8 to Lord Vishnu, where he says, you have no form, you have no birth, you have no activity, you have no this and that, and yet you take birth and you have form, you have activity, which is a contradiction, a very direct contradiction. So Jiva Goswami takes on that apparent contradiction and explains, and it's subtle. Form as we know it, keeping it simple. Form as we know it has those limitations, like you described. The spiritual form doesn't. Like Krishna can be bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest at the same time. Now that's material form can't be either. What to speak of both at the same time. So that means he has spiritual form. And spiritual form doesn't have limits, doesn't have boundaries. Now, there's a more detailed explanation than what I just said, found in Bhagavad Sandarbha. You can look it up. And Hari Parshad Prabhu explained that section of Bhagavad Sandarbha in a 3-part seminar, Krishna, the harmonizer of opposites or contradictions. Krishna, the harmonizer of contradictions. You can go there and hear the recording. It's really well done. Just following Jiva Goswami's explanation in Bhagavad Sandarbha, or you can go to Bhagavad Sandarbha and look at it more precisely. But I've given you the essence.
Question from Sundar Gopal Prabhu. One must not be genuine and free from duplicity in order to hear the holy name perfectly? Question mark.
You can say that's a prerequisite, or you can say that's a byproduct. I mean, the prerequisite is faith and perseverance and mercy. And then those qualities or qualifications gradually manifest. Krishna's got a big quality and qualification warehouse, and he'll decorate such a person with those qualities and qualifications. The prerequisite is faith and mercy. Endeavor with faith, sincere, consistent endeavor with faith, and calling for mercy.
question from Uttama Bhakta Prabhu. When one is not disturbed by external disturbances and the chanting continues internally, is that a clearing stage?
I don't know what you mean by chanting internally. By chanting internally, do you mean when you're sitting at your workstation somewhere, you're chanting internally? Or what does it mean when you've got your hand in your bead bag and you're not chanting aloud, you're chanting internally? Or I'm not sure what the question means.
Just a comment in between while he might be saying something.
Okay, he's going to write something.
Comment from Shyam Sundar Prabhu.
Okay,
He wants to thank you for the wonderful presentation,
okay.
and he's eternally indebted to you for your classes and service. Uttama Bhakta Prabhu clarified he means regular chanting.
Okay, so now ask the question again using regular chanting.
When one is not disturbed by external disturbances and regular chanting continues with a bead bag, he has clarified again, with a bead bag, is that a clearing stage?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. With this program, now Bhagavatam class ends, and there will be a youth presentation at 9:30 a.m. And we already sent some messages, and if you are interested still, and if you haven't registered, you can either contact Dana Leela or Damodar Sharan to get the Zoom link for that session. And that session will be only broadcast on Zoom. And also it's only for the age group of 14 to 24 years old, and specifically for the Houston youth has been directed. So if anybody is interested, please contact Dana Leela or Damodar Sharan. Hare Krishna.